Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase. You can find me on Twitter at Trophy Chase TFDR. And as always, my man Cody, where can they find you at?
As always, y'all can find me on Twitter at Cody Smith TFDR. You can check out the YouTube that you should be watching right now or the podcast that you're listening to, wherever you can find podcasts. Check us out over on Twitter as well at our joint account at _TFDR. And I think that's all we've got. And we've got a pretty cool show this week. A lot of new fancy borders, some overlays, some thumbnails.
Playing around
We're
with some
stepping
things.
up in the world, man.
Yeah, man. Please, if you're listening to this, please like and subscribe. Subscribe. Appreciate all the views that we've been getting lately. Appreciate the support and the love and the people that have reached out. Comment, again, like and subscribe. It helps us out so much. So we do have a lot to get into today with a lot of the injuries that have happened, a lot of the random quarterbacks that are going to be starting this week. So we're going to get into some trades in a little bit here, but we're going to kick things off here with we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. We did an episode, and I'll put the link in the description. We did a 2023 quarterback carousel talking about the quarterbacks that are going to be retread, basically, who's going to still be around for next year. And in all honesty, a lot of these guys are going to be back for 2024. And my goodness, there's quarterbacks starting this week that I'm baffled about right now. So I want to start off with Zach Wilson. I've never been in on him, but he's getting benched. What are we doing? What just happened?
Man, you remember back in week 5 where we were like, man, he might be, he's getting up there with Trevor Lawrence in this class. He's 2 weeks back from the high ankle sprain. And we're like, oh man, he's doing really good. He's got the weapons around him now.
He's winning.
Weapons have fallen off. He's fallen off. This offense has fallen off. Whenever you have 2 yards of offense in the second half of a football game in total, that's not good. And then when you're asked about it later, if you feel like you let your defense down, that held the other team to 3 points the entire game until the last second punt return touchdown. So your defense was immaculate in this game. You couldn't do anything. This is while you're going 3 and out, only getting 2 yards of offense the entire second half. Your defense is dead tired. Did you let them down at all? No. And for that, you get benched.
Do you think it's long-term benching, or do you think it's just this week? Because that is something I'm kind of curious with the way, like with Denzel Mims and how that situation was handled, with Elijah Moore and how that was handled, him winning a trade. Like, this is still, the number 2 draft pick. Like, this is still a guy they invested in heavily, but it's still a young kid who obviously has a lot of growing up to do, a lot of leadership abilities he needs to develop if he wants to lead a locker room. I mean, I would find it hard to believe he's done, but it doesn't look good on the field either. So
no, it doesn't. But Saleh has already come out and said, this isn't the end for Zach Wilson. We still have Zach Wilson and is wanting him to become the future of this franchise. It's what they've already come out and said.
Yep.
And while they may want that, like you said, he's got the growing up and maturity issues to probably work through, at least from what we can see on the outside and all of the reports that we've had coming from that locker room. The interesting thing that I think for Zach Wilson, at least this year, is we've seen some good things from Mike White in the past. Whenever he was playing last year, Mike freaking White Lightning tearing it up last year, saving me. He got me a win in fantasy. I was so bold to start him one week. But the thing is, Zach Wilson, with how good this defense was, he wasn't losing games. They're still very much in a playoff hunt. He was 5-2 as a starter this year.
Yep.
And because of that, if Mike White does start winning games, there's no reason. Unless he just starts falling off the face of the earth, they go on a 3-game losing streak, and then they're falling out of the playoffs, then I think we can see a Zach Wilson step back in. But with how good this defense is, I would say that Mike White is going to be better looking in this offense than what Zach Wilson has been showing up for the last couple of weeks. And with that, I think they're going to be in the playoffs. And if you're in the playoffs, there is no reason to put Zach Wilson back in this year.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what White does down the stretch and how well he performs. But if they do keep winning, and they, again, they were winning with Zach Wilson as well, but if they keep winning and you have White leading the team to offensive production more than 2.5 yards, like, that's going to be tough to pull. So it very well could be for the end of the year. Put him back in the offseason program. Let's see what Wilson does. But yeah, man, Zach Wilson's not a guy I really ever invested in. If you have him on your fantasy teams, there's really nothing you can do other than hold and pray that that dude gets back on the field. So I kind of want to touch on anything. Last thing you want to touch on real quick with Zach Wilson?
Nope, you're just stuck. Hold them until probably next offseason. If you can trade for any of these guys on that QB carousel where we say they're going to get jobs next year, freaking do it. Any like Jimmy G, Geno Smith, any of those guys. I mean, even freaking Mariota, Tannehill, I might try to pivot off of and get down if I can pick up anything on top. So you're probably just stuck, though, because nobody's going to want him right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to just kind of list off because we have Mike White starting this week. We have Kyle Allen starting. Bryce Perkins is starting. Who the fuck is Bryce Perkins? PJ Walker. Let's see. So PJ Walker and Baker Mayfield are out. So we have Darnold back in the mix again. And that cluster that is Carolina. Kyler Murray hopefully back. Colt McCoy. I mean, just everything. Trevor Siemian starting this week. Man, it's just a crazy week of quarterbacks that I never thought would be starting. Who are you most intrigued by? Who do you not really care about? Any of these actual starters like Davis Mills, Matthew Stafford, Kyler, Justin Fields, any of these guys you worried about? Let's kind of start with that.
I mean, out of all of these guys, if I had to start the backup this week, it'd be probably Mike White, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather start him over Darnold, who's coming in for any of these guys. I'd rather start him over Bryce Perkins, Kyle Allen. I mean, honestly, all three of those guys I don't really care about. I'll pick them up on a Superflex league because they're going to be starting quarterbacks here for who knows how long. But other than that, I mean, I don't want to be in any position to start any of them. I really don't want to be in a position to start Mike White either. But if I had my choice of the lot, Mike White's going to be the one. Colt McCoy would be second, probably. I guess Trevor Siemian's also in that mix, but I'm not trying Trevor Siemian's with all the other guys I don't really care about. Yeah, Colt McCoy would be the only one, but it does sound like Kyler Murray is on track to play this week, coming from him, the source.
From him. He's done playing Call of Duty. He's ready to go. No, yeah, I would say Colt McCoy is number 2 on that list for me. Mike White, we've seen him do it before, so there's not that concern about what he can do on the field. I mean, I would say the thing that I look at here is like Davis Mills getting pulled that's it, right? Like this is his chance. This was his one opportunity. We thought this might be the year. Clearly it's not happening. They're done. They're tanking at this point. They're just throwing in Kyle Allen for the see what they got kind of thing. But this is it for Davis Mills. This is the last kind of hurrah for Kyle Allen. He gets another opportunity to start. You can't do anything with Davis Mills either.
No, that's a fully dead asset. You hope that he becomes a backup somewhere else next year and can resurrect a career after another year of, another year in the league, different offense, because I guess he's probably just going to be stuck under this offense, to be honest. So what are you looking for next year, even with him? Probably just a dead asset. If you can get anything for him, I'd flip it off right now. Kyle Allen, we know what he is. Honestly, if they wanted to keep the tank alive, you could almost just keep Davis Mills in. I don't think Kyle Allen's probably an upgrade, but they know he's not the future either. We're going to be we are being Texans fan here, at least me. We're going to be taking a quarterback either at the very top of the draft or just finding a stop fill gap because we've still got so many damn holes on this team that we need help everywhere, and we might just punt to 2024. Just say, hey, we're in a 5-year rebuild, and we're going to just try to go get the Drake May, Caleb Williams, and punt on this year too, if they don't feel like one of the top guys is going to be there for them and be their future, because they probably will have the number 1 overall pick this year.
Absolutely. I mean, not really much more to dive into with Houston. Matt Stafford is interesting to me. We've had a lot of talks about him, that team as a whole, being older, not a lot of capital, not a lot of cap space to improve. You have injuries galore. You have an awful offensive line. This team is just down in the dumps. Everyone at this point is on IR. They're cutting Darrell Henderson. We go back to that QB carousel episode, and I'm like, I have a hard time seeing Stafford retire with the contract that he has and the money he's set to make. So like, I want to like stop that thought process of him retiring. It is a possibility, very much so, with the beatdown that he takes year in and year out. But are you trying to acquire Matt Stafford? Like, are you looking at next year? Can you sell him for anything?
I don't know if you can sell him for anything. Again, any of these quarterbacks, hell, I'd probably sell him for like Taylor Heineke almost. Like I'm done with Stafford. I
Really?
truthfully think I think there's 50-50 shot he retires. Did you hear
Okay.
like the report today was that from the concussion and from neck pain again, which he's had neck problems before, he didn't have full feeling in his legs. Like I seriously think there's a very good chance he retires at the end of this year and Sean McVay goes to the booth, and this entire Rams offense or this entire Rams team is just scrapped for pieces. Whatever we can get in the trade market, just send them off, and we're just going to go into rebuild. We got our Super Bowl. Don't care. We're done. Peace, y'all.
Smash reset.
Yep.
They no longer are going to fuck them picks. They want them picks. Yeah, no, I could see it happening. I mean, there is part of me that would be interested in Stafford at the right price, just because. I mean, God, he just has done nothing.
Untouchable.
I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you have him and you can package him and put him in a package to get an upgrade at quarterback, do it. You can sell the fact that he's going to be back, but he is going to be a hold at this point. I mean, you kind of are just praying that he's back next year and that you have the opportunity to flip him in the offseason. You're not doing anything for a run. You got to ride it all out. I mean, unfortunately, you got to ride it out. Hope you have a QB3 that can fill in his place. If you haven't figured it out this year, he's sucked. So you should have been able to figure out a solution for Stafford prior to, what are we in, week 12? So it's on you at this point if you haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I think you just gotta pray for all of those guys. But what about Kyler and Justin Fields? Do you feel there's a buy opportunity for these guys?
Kyler's been on a buy opportunity this entire season, I think.
Yeah.
People have been low on him for whatever reason. You know, he's going to miss games probably every year. There's the off the field issues. We don't know all about his buy-in, but the dude's still producing. He still runs. He's still a good fantasy quarterback in my mindset. I do think that Justin Fields is the more interesting case right now because we've seen the full community buy-in over the last 3-4 weeks that he's been running the ball all over the field. And I mean, as a Justin Fields hater, I've got to say, I was starting to believe in the buy-in, and then he goes out this week, and this is the problem. Whenever you run for 162 yards a game and 18 attempts, whenever you're a quarterback, you get hurt. He was cramping up on the field during this game, and then at the end, we just see him start holding his shoulder, and immediately I was like, yep, AC joint, AC sprain. That looks exactly like an AC sprain. And then we don't even have full confirmation of what it really is. They're saying it's kind of like an AC sprain, but it was a dislocated shoulder, but it tore some ligaments in his shoulder. He might be day to day, but he also might be out for the year. The entire situation's weird.
Confusing.
But if there's a buy opportunity on Justin Fields because of the injury, I don't think there is because of how much buy-in we have until we get confirmation of what the injury is and how long he's going to be out for. I don't think there's going to be a buy window. But if I'm on a rebuilding team and then there is a buy window that opens, if he does go out for like the rest of the season, say, then I think I could buy into some Justin Fields.
Keep your eyes open for the injury reports and what Fields' status is going forward, because there will be a buy opportunity. Fields has definitely kept people in the playoff hunt this year. He's given people the opportunity and the hope to either win a title. So a lot of the people that have Fields right now are actually contenders. And if he does miss extended time, or if he's week to week and he goes, excuse me, he goes into the trade deadline, your fantasy trade deadline, and you can't, you need to pivot off of him. So one of these teams are going to need to pivot off of Fields. See if you can give him, that owner, somebody else. See what they're looking for Fields, because they're going to be looking for quarterback production. It may not be the exact same as Fields, but it's going to be something that they need. And you might be able to capitalize on that opportunity to buy low on what could be a top 10 quarterback in the future.
Yep, right there with you. Just capitalize, see what we've got going on, see what you've got going on in your own personal league, see where that manager is. But hopefully, we'll know some more information here come tomorrow on Thanksgiving, or today on Thanksgiving, whenever this drops, or tomorrow through the weekend. We should find out something more before Sunday because, like I've said, I haven't seen anything about a definite timetable of him being out other than day to day to rest of the season. And so we're really just in a waiting period. But as soon as that news happens, know what you need to do before the news breaks in each scenario. Is he out 4 weeks? Is he out just this week? Is he going to be playing this week, or is he going to be out for the season and having shoulder surgery? Who knows at this point, right? But whatever the outcome is, you need to be prepared for it.
And we'll talk some trade ideas that we have of ways to get Justin Fields in a little bit here. So stay tuned. But Kyler, you mentioned the buy window for Kyler this year has been open. You know, he's a guy that I feel like just perennially just gets shit on. You know, he's always a top 6 performer. He is maybe his passing metrics aren't there. Maybe he's not rushing as much, and everyone kind of panics as he just tied to Cliff Kingsbury, and that's going to be it for him. If you can go out and take Tua and a pick, Dak and a pick, Trevor Lawrence and a pick, and you can get yourself up to Kyler, I'm doing it personally. I have no issue getting up there. I think that that's a player I feel a lot more confident in moving into than I do moving out of.
Yeah, and he's got weapons coming back. He should have DeAndre Hopkins. You know, he's had a little bit of a hamstring issue. Seems like it's just maintenance, though. Should have Hollywood back this week as he was almost ready to play last week, but wasn't able to make the jump to the Monday night game in Mexico. And so I think they should have full cast of characters back this week. I guess maybe not Rondale Moore, but Greg Dortch serves as a pretty good filler. So if somebody got dropped a Greg Dortch, you know, go pick up some Greg Dortch as well while we're at it on this conversation.
Yep, I've seen Dortch get picked up in a lot of places, and yeah, didn't miss a beat. Picked up right where Rondale left off. So, any last quarterbacks we want to dive into here? Carson Wentz, I know he's designated to return, but it sounds like it's the Heineke show.
Yep, that's an interesting one. I don't think there's going to be any change of QB at this point yet. Taylor Heineke's winning. Carson Wentz, we'll see. If Taylor Heineke starts to slip at all, I could see them going back to Carson Wentz. So just a situation to monitor. Yeah. I think you're just I'm not going to go out and buy Carson Wentz. I'm not trying to sell Carson Wentz right now. It's just hold until we find out more information about what his future is going to be. And then the last one, we're a week away. Not this week, but Deshaun Watson is coming back week 13 to face his old team in Houston Texans. Couldn't have written a better story for the NFL. It's going to be a
crazy
absolute marketing onslaught. You know, bad press probably everywhere, but it's going to be good press for the NFL, and it's going to be a fun matchup. Interesting to see, you know, what he looks like coming back on the field. But if you're relying on a Jacoby Brisket share, he's not going to be the starter. Real quick, while we're on this one, I've seen a lot of talk going around the circles of the internet lately. While we are on the quarterback carousel, we didn't talk about it at the time. We kind of dismissed it, but I've seen a lot of people saying that Jacoby Brisket should have a job next year as a starter. Are you in on that? Because I'm still not. He's won like 3 games this year. Why are we going to give him a starting role?
He's not a guy that's going to be brought in to start, but he's a guy that will get brought in to compete, I believe. So he will have an opportunity to start. I think because he's going to have the opportunity to choose the job of his choice, right? You know, he's going to be a free agent, obviously not getting tagged. So he's going to get to choose. And I'm guessing he's going to choose a situation where he can compete for a starting role, or there's a clearer path to getting reps. You know, going back to Indianapolis is a possibility with everything that's going on there. People have talked about if Lamar does end up getting traded away, that him going and competing with Tyler Huntley in Baltimore. It's that kind of situation I feel like that he would look for. But to come in to just start, no freaking way. He's going to be a stopgap for whatever team he's on, and they're absolutely going to, you know, have the ability to pull him for another quarterback. So I'm not investing in him, I'll say that much.
No, I honestly, in my opinion, I've obviously Jacoby Brisket's been my guy, ride or die this year for the first 13 weeks. But I mean, in my opinion, I haven't seen enough from Jacoby Brisket on a decent Browns team. Like he should be, if he's a good enough quarterback to be starting, he should have won more than 3 games with this team right now, in my opinion. So for me,
Fair point.
I see his best case scenario being Tyrod Taylor last year,
Fair
going
point.
in to like quote unquote compete with Daniel Jones.
Not
That's
really a competition, but like
right. Like,
if
hey,
Daniel Jones shat the bed,
just in case you start sucking, we've got a guy back here.
put a little pressure on him, right?
Right. Or maybe like some team that drafts a rookie and they want to throw him out there for the first 4 weeks or something.
Exactly.
That's the best
I
case
like that.
scenario, in my opinion, for Tyrod Taylor. But I think that's it for all the quarterback changes that we have. I mean, we thought a carousel was going to be happening in 2023. We've seen a carousel happen in just week 12. It's
Craziness.
crazy, man. But with that, we've got some injuries to these quarterbacks that are causing the carousel, and we've got some trade reviews, injury pivots. We had our episode last week where we actually had a good amount of people, a good amount of activity in the comments section, and we absolutely loved it. We tried to respond to every single one of those as quickly as possible. And a lot of people, before we get to these quarterbacks that we're going to touch on as well, a lot of people had Cooper Cup questions. And so
Yes.
what we did is we're going to try to compile some of those Cooper Cup questions. We're actually going to talk through our thought process as we kind of explained it to them. And we're going to put together some other trades for some of the other scenarios. We've also got the Kyle Pitts injury that we haven't addressed yet. So we'll address that and put some possible trade pivots off of him. But let's get into the first trade here and just kick this thing off.
Perfect. So this is the one that Cody and I are actually co-owners on. So we wanted to start off with this one to give kind of a blanket idea of what we pivoted from and to in order to. This is obviously pre Wandale injury as well, for the record. So before he got injured, Cody and I had a competitive team. We're first place in the league, and Cup went down. So we're like, okay, where can we go? What can we pivot to? Mike Evans, borderline wide receiver 1, Tyler Lockett, again, fringy type of player, boom bust weeks. And we're just like, let's get some veteran production that can put points on our roster. I felt really good about doing this. It felt solid. You don't sacrifice anything long term. How did you feel about it as we went through this one too?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime. I mean, this was a couple days after Cooper Cup's injury, right? And we had
Yep.
our trade deadline imposed on us, so we had to make the move then. Didn't feel great at the time, but for the value that we got back on Cooper Cup, with our team being as it was, like you said, competitive team, needed the points because we weren't going to be able to sustain. Our lack of our default to that team or flaw in that team is we don't have depth, and this created 2 spots of wide receiver depth for us. Obviously, Wandale, we could not have predicted that this injury was going to happen to him, but we weren't totally bought into the Wandale hype either, at least for this year, to be in our starting lineup week over week. So we get 2 guys that we thought could hit our lineup each week. Cooper Cup, we can't use him for what we need this year, so it was just getting as many points in our roster as possible, and this was the best we were able to do with the time we were given. And looking at it now, it looks even better, unfortunately, for Wandale Robinson and the team who received this side of things. But they're probably going for a punt next year as well. So get a good receiver that can come back next year, get Cooper Cup, and this trade could look a lot different if Tom Brady's not in Tampa next year, and you just got Tyler Lockett basically at that
30.
point. Yeah, I mean, we got 2 aging veteran wide receivers as well. So I think this was a fair trade going back and forth, and I think it serves both teams' purposes. I really liked this one.
Yep, it worked out. Like you said, at the time, didn't feel super great about it, looking for points. So took what we could get, and I've and we did it when both of those guys, Evans and Lockett, were going on by. So not only did we take the L on the points for that week, we'll get them back this week, so we'll be good to go rolling them out there. But yeah, good to go. Let's roll into some of the questions we got here on Twitter and in the comments. Actually, we'll jump into that one. We'll jump into those in just a second here. This one actually just happened today. That's right. We're going to push this one through first.
Yep.
So this actually just happened today. In one of my leagues here, Cooper Cup was traded away for Josh Jacobs. This is a hardcore contender. He has sacrificed a lot already to put his team in one of the top 2 teams in the league. So Cup going down really, really hurt, and no crazy scoring or anything like that. He decided to trade him straight up for Josh Jacobs, a guy who's going to be leaving in free agency technically. but he's been smashing for a good chunk of the year. Had a couple reality games, but has performed at a high level. Where do you where are you at on this one here?
Whenever I first saw it, it didn't feel great. The first thing for me is you're going cross positional to try to replace your value, and it's not exactly how I want to do that. You know, we're on team wide receiver here, so normally if I'm losing the wide receiver depth, now I'm having to bump somebody possibly if we're I don't know exactly for this league, but if we're starting three wide receivers, now I don't know what his full depth looks like in this team, but it might be a little bit sketchy as your wide receiver three even to start in your lineup every single week. So just on the surface, it looks a little bit scary there. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, that's a good amount of points that you're replacing for Cooper Cups right now, right? I mean, he's RB4 on the year in the league that I'm looking at on Sleeper right now and putting up 11, 22, and 19 points the last 3 weeks. So I think that's a pretty good pivot. I think in value, you are taking a pretty good hit, though, because Josh Jacobs is just one of those guys that no matter what he does every year, he just keeps being an RB1. And we're just like, let's rank him at like RB20 next year. That seems great. And I think I'm at fault for it too, because every year I'm just like, it's just Josh Jacobs, though. Like it just doesn't, it's just, why should it work out? And then he just goes out there and puts up another RB1 season. So I think you're losing in value, but I don't think the points lost is enough for me to say that this is a bad deal or anything. It's a move that obviously you're going to be forced to in because, like you said, he's a contender, and I'm okay with it. It's not something I like. I'd probably, if I just in a vacuum, I'd probably still lean Cooper Cup side, but for what it's probably another one of those that serves both teams equally for what they need.
Yeah, I feel like it's beneficial for both sides, but this just feels like the David Montgomery season. Was it last year or the year before, where he was like RB4 on the year and then just kind of fell back to mediocre, not mediocrity, but what David Montgomery is, like, a back end RB1 to a high end RB2. That's what this feels like for Jacobs. It feels like it's a contract year for Jacobs. He's going out, he's playing great football. So yes, it does feel good this year, but it's still a running back, man. That's he's 23, 24 years old. He's got a lot of wear on his body. It is concerning, but yeah, for what they're looking to do and the directions the teams were going in, I do not blame him at all for going Jacobs, but I know for a fact he's going to be looking at that position every single week and being like, all right, Jacobs,
Got to smash.
yeah, you better smash for me. You better stay healthy. You better smash. Raiders better not shut you down because they're tanking for for a quarterback. So, a very interesting situation to be watching down the stretch here. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing how this one plays out in that league.
Yeah, and just talking about the kind of like stink that Josh Jacobs has on him. Josh Jacobs in the league that I'm looking at right now has never finished outside the top 15 running backs.
Yep.
David Montgomery, his one season was RB6, and that's the only time he's finished in the top 15 running backs.
There you
So
go.
Jacobs, I mean, obviously, it'll probably be dependent going into the future upon where he goes, right? Because I don't think either of us think he's re-signing in Las Vegas.
No.
It's just not what that franchise is going to do, not what that head coach is going to do. So I think it will depend a lot on his landing spot and what his contract situation is moving forward about how this one plays out into the future. But hey, win the ship this year, doesn't matter, right?
Exactly. All right, so now let's move on to the next couple trades here and see what we got going on with this. So this was a first question that was asked by Kevin in the YouTube comments, reached out on Twitter as well to kind of talk through some things here. This was the initial offer that was kind of being walked through, and he was going to be giving up Terry McLaurin, Isaiah Likely, and a mid-23 second for Cooper Kupp. Now, a little team context here, because in a vacuum, you look at this and you're just like, I mean, maybe depends on what you're doing. He was a middle of the pack team looking at next year, so it's something that Kupp isn't going to benefit him any this year, and he's hoping to contend in 2023. So it fits the timeline of what you're looking to do. It doesn't feel great as I look at it, But there's a lot of risk reward here. Giving up a package of a 3-for-1. Isaiah Likely's looked good. Obviously, he's going to be a backup to Mark Andrews as long as Mark Andrews is there, and then a mid 23 second. And we've went through the first round. There is some good depth in the 23 class, so it still could be a Zach Charbonnet, especially if it's his second, where it's going to be middle of the pack, and if he acquires Cup, could end up being towards the top half of the draft, right? What do you think about this deal here? How do you break this down?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I would kind of ask, I don't know if we got into this one in the DMs, but did we get a number of starters in this league? Like, if it's a really deep league, then I'm a little bit more hesitant, like you said, to send that package. Maybe like once you get 12 plus even, but that's really the only place that I'm overly concerned, because I don't see much happening from Isaiah Likely, even though he's had his smash games, he's had his spot starts this year. I don't still value him too much going forward. As long as Mark Andrews is there, he's going to be the one in that offense. And then you look at the mid 23 second, and as I'm looking back at this again, now we see that it's a 1 QB league as well. So the mid 23 second gets even a little bit more devalued because the quarterbacks just aren't as valuable there. So really, then you're just kind of, I mean, 2 throw-in pieces for a straight swap of Terry McLaurin and Cooper Kupp. We've seen Terry be smashing these last couple of weeks, so that's pretty nice. However, we know what Cooper Kupp is. Obviously, we don't know what the situation of this offense is going to be next year. We've raised the concerns earlier in the episode about Matthew Stafford possibly retiring here. So it's a scary outlook, but I don't have concerns about Cooper Kupp, the talent moving forward. As I'm in a punt, if I'm in a punt team, I'm perfectly fine sending away Cooper Kupp for this package, because I do think it's just, I can almost break it down as Terry McLaurin and then a couple throw-ins to lower my pick, and then give me Cooper Kupp value that I can either ride into next year if I think I can flip the team around and start competing, or I can flip Cooper Kupp once he comes back next year.
And I think that's where it broke down to. So after we looked at his roster, it is even though it's 1 QB, it is a start 8 lineup. So essentially start 9 if it was super flex. So start 8 for single QB. And the biggest issue was he was very, very thin at wide receiver. So that's what it came down to, is would you be competing next year? And he gets Ridley back. There's a couple other pieces that would be coming back, and it would be possible. It was just a risk reward. I'm with you. With it being start 8, I want superstars. I want studs. I want the best players I can possibly get. So Cooper Kupp is going to be a guy that I absolutely want on my team. And it, like you just mentioned, if it doesn't work out and your team doesn't make it through camp healthy, or you look at your team and you're like, this ain't it, you have a valuable trade piece that you're going to get more than McLaurin Likely in a second. So I do lean that side. It is just a risk reward, right? We just talked about Matt Stafford potentially retiring. There's a lot of like uncertainty around Cooper Kupp that makes you pause, and that could like crush his trade value, like in fantasy at least. So still a little hesitant, because you got to ride it out from now until August of next year.
You're picking your direction on it.
100%. You're picking your direction. And so I'm down with Cooper Kupp for this one. Just makes me feel a little uneasy just for the team's sake.
Yep, right there with you. I think we can move on from this one.
Perfect. So this one popped in here. Pie Guy Dude Man in the YouTube comments. Thank you so much for dropping this in. I haven't had a chance to really look and break this one down, so I want to hear what your thoughts were when you first saw the 23-101 Rachaad White, a late 23 second for Kupp, Lance, and a late first. The 101, man.
So the way I broke this one down, I'm a Lance truther. So the way I broke this one down was I went back to some of our midseason startup mocks that we've done, and I was kind of looking through, seeing where I thought that Bijan would fit in if I was to just drop Bijan straight into that draft. And initially, I thought, you know what, Trey Lance is going mid second, and that's probably not too far off from where we project Bijan to go. I think we have the quarterbacks of the first round. We have the Jefferson. We have Jamar Chase in the first round as well. Some of the tight ends possibly of Andrews and Kelsey. And then, and at least in the leagues we probably play in, you're probably looking at the running backs starting to go off there. And I'm basically on the train of Bijan's going to be the first overall taken running back next year, which is absolutely ludicrous and bonkers to say, but I think it's going to happen by the time we get here next year. So I was trying to say that 101 and Trey Lance are straight swap.
Fair.
Then I'm looking at it saying, okay, well, I'm going from a late 23 first and a late 23 second. I get the edge there, and I get Cooper Kupp over Rachaad White. I get the edge there. I'm going to take the receive side. Thought about it a little bit more, and man, that 101 is going to be it's going to be worth a lot more than Trey Lance come next year. It's going to be a lot more than Trey Lance come next year.
It's crazy to think about, like, because that was my first reaction too. I looked at this. I'm like, okay, let's just say wipe out 101 for Trey Lance. Okay. Cooper Kupp over Rachaad White, no doubt about it. And then first over the second, no question. We still don't know what Trey Lance is, right? We have absolutely no clue who he is, what kind of player he's going to be going forward. Obviously, with the 101, you're taking Bijan. If you're not taking Bijan, you're doing it wrong. Please be taking Bijan Robinson. Let's just start there. And then you can trade that asset for something else. But I still think if I'm on the receive side and I have Kupp, Lance in that first, I would much rather use Lance in a first to go get something else. I think I'm taking that side still. I think I'm taking the receive side, even though that 101 might be more valuable than Trey Lance. If you put the 101 in the second with Lance in the first, I mean, I feel like it's a minuscule difference. So I feel like that's even. You're still looking at Rachaad White for Kupp. And Rachaad White might be the starting running back in Tampa next year. Might be. But I'm taking the receive side. And I feel pretty good about it, just for the fact of what I can do with Lance in that first, and then what I can do with Kupp that late second. Rachaad White, 101, that feels good. But I'm taking the three pieces on that receive side.
So the only thing after I thought about it a little bit more was, do I have to make the move now?
True.
And what's probably happening, what could be happening here, we don't know the specifics of this deal, but what could be happening is the guy wants Rachaad White to make a push in, and then he's going to get the 101 and just like put this team over the edge come next year. It could possibly be that. So the only thing I was thinking is, like, is there anything else I can do not to move the 101 right now? Because picks are at their lowest value right now, and I want to hold that 101 for as long as I can for the best possible package that I can. My only counter to it would be, if you're in a quarterback needy situation, you're getting a quarterback back here without having to give one up. And if I'm needing quarterbacks going into next year, and I think I've got another quarterback that's ready to go, I can get Cooper Kupp back. I have a late 23 first that I can flip into an asset, either make the pick or turn it into 24 and pick up an extra asset, and then use that asset to push my team over the next year. Man, I would say in a vacuum, I'm still on the receive side, because getting the quarterback for me is going to be more valuable even than Bijan. Even though we don't know what Trey Lance is, I've seen the rushing upside. I've seen the floor there with him, and I've seen how this offense is operating with Jimmy G right now. I still don't think there's a way that there's any question that this is Trey Lance's team moving forward next year. And so for that reason, I still take the receive side, but man, I would try to maybe explore something else to where I don't have to give up that 101 if I don't have to right now.
Yeah, Pie Guy, I want to look at the comments, and we can chat on Twitter, the three of us, and we can kind of figure out exactly which side you're on. I see you're rebuilding is the goal here. And even if I'm getting Lance that first and Kupp, like what you can do with Kupp, what you should be able to do with that first, and then the fact that you're getting a quarterback, like I'm taking the receive side, and I feel pretty good about it just because of what I can do with those pieces. So,
yep. Hope that one helps. If you need anything more, want to reach out further, hit us up on either comments of this YouTube or either any of the Twitters. Hit us up on there, and we can make it work.
So let's move on here. This one here is Andrew, and Andrew and I talked quite a bit about this, and he ended up getting a better deal than what this was. But I want to look at this one because this is the one that really made me think. So what he ended up getting, so he was giving up Tyreek, a third and a fourth, to get Cooper Cup and a 24 first. His team he's looking at next year. He's not in it this year. So he's going to give up Tyreek to a contender who wanted to get off of Cup. So in a way, he's looking at it as I'm getting off of, I'm doing a straight swap for Tyreek and Cooper Cup for next year. Sounds good. Starting 2023 sounds good. I'll put it on paper. And then you're getting a 24 first. I mean, where are you at on this? And I'll tell you what he ended up getting.
It sounds good whenever you say straight swap for Tyreek Hill and Cooper Cup. If I didn't have major concerns about Cooper Cup and Tyreek Hill was locked into the same role, same thing next year, right? Like Tyreek Hill is going to maintain every ounce of volume outside of him suffering the same type of injury, right? He's going to maintain every ounce of value that he has right now up until next season. And it's not going to go down because of age. At least I don't see a world in which there is. I mean, he could be easily the number one wide receiver on the year.
Could be.
So it's hard sending away Tyreek Hill. But I do understand the fact that we're going to getting a 24 first. Cooper Cup shouldn't be that far of a drop down. At least, this was a couple days ago before Matthew Stafford said he couldn't feel his legs anymore. And that's maybe a little bit of an added factor for me because that's scary as hell to me and for the outlook of this team. But I can totally see it. So while I'd be hard pressed to make the move. However, I can fully see the punts next year picking up Cooper Cup and picking up a 24 first, a class that we're going to be good in, seeing that he's a 1-9 record as well. My initial thought process was, well, is Cooper Cup going to be really the piece that is going to put you over the edge in 2023? And so that's what my initial thought process was when I saw this deal, but I know you talked through with him a lot and he actually got the better deal. So let's hear what that one is.
Yeah, so he actually ended up giving up just one other fourth, a 23 fourth. So it was Tyreek, a third, and 2 fourths. For Cooper Cup, a 24 first and a 24 second. So basically, got the additional second kicked in there, which I love. I feel like when we talked this through, not even production wise, looking at Cup and Tyreek, but also trade value wise, hoping that you can move off of Cup if next year he's not contending, and being able to move that into another 24 first. And if you told me I'm selling Tyreek Hill for 2 24 firsts and a second, I feel pretty good about the value that I'm getting there. So that's kind of where I think he's thinking and where I'm at when I look at that side. I'm just like, the value for me is too much to pass up.
Yep, and I can fully understand that. Getting an extra second kicked in as well is fantastic. Removing one of the picks on the other side.
Good job, by the way.
Second's going to give you some value. So, yeah, I was right on the edge of this one. Throwing in a second probably would put me on the edge of the other side, and it sucks giving up Tyreek Hill because he's damn good and he's going to be damn good next year. You're taking on the risk with Cooper Cup, but you have to know that going in. As long as you're okay with taking that risk and just trying to capitalize on the future potential returns of the first and the second come next year and into 2024, I'm fine with making the move.
Me too. All right, let's keep this thing rolling. We got a few more to get in here before we run out of time. So Kyle Pitts obviously got hurt, MCL done for the year. We have a trade where someone traded away Kyle Pitts and received back T. Higgins and Bob Tonyan.
Man, fall from grace from Kyle Pitts. It's not just the fact that he's injured and out for the rest of the year. It's the fact that he sucked, right? Going from a first round startup pick to where he is now, and then he gets injured as well. And we're looking at a team that I'm more and more on the train that Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. With every win they get, it's more and more likely chance. And it sucks. I haven't been the biggest buy into everything and sell off everything for Kyle Pitts. I don't own any Kyle Pitts shares, but I've wanted to own a lot of Drake London shares, and I've done a lot of things to try to get some. Kind of glad I haven't anymore at this point. I still love the talent. I'm going to love the future of Drake London. Probably going to buy in the future. But if I think Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback of this team again next year, there's no reason for me to buy into it because he's not going to be producing what his value is worth right now. And so we see trades like this. This is what happens whenever players don't produce. Now they get hurt. You have to punt. You have to make your pivot to keep you alive. And if you're in the playoffs, if you're in the postseason push right now, you've got to make moves like this. So T. Higgins and Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan does not feel good. I think he only put up like 3 points last week. T. Higgins, you've got Jamar Chase coming back as well, but it actually might be a little bit better for T. Higgins from what we've seen with those two on the field, possibly making the offense a little bit better. We'll see how that one goes. This hurts, man. I mean, this feels like just so much sunk value from where you were probably bought into Kyle Pitts at. But if you need to make the push, and man, I'm fine with getting off Kyle Pitts at this point. I think I've brought him down to just like one of those mid-range tight end guys at this point, because if I don't see a path to relevancy for him next year, even then what I'm playing for 24 and I'm trying to put multiple picks worth of value into a 2024 guy, I'm just not doing that.
Yeah, he fell into the hawk range where it's like, you've seen potential, but it's never been consistent enough for you to be like, yeah, I really want this guy on my dynasty team. He's still young. He still has a lot of time. This same concern is still there when it comes to the quarterback situation, and that's going to be there. So I get it. I like T. Higgins. I don't love him, but I think this is a good pivot point for where Kyle Pitts' value is. I mean, I think you're getting a good return with T, and you got a tight end back, I guess. So it doesn't feel good considering what you could have gotten for Kyle Pitts in August. But yeah, man, there's really not much for me to break down on that. You hit the nail on the head. It's the quarterback situation going forward. But I'm good with T. Higgins and Robert Tonyan here. I mean,
yeah, my only thing is I would probably, for what's probably happening in this situation, just looking at it from a vacuum, I don't want to be starting Robert Tonyan. No. I would rather pay up for. I would try to rather pivot to one of those mid-range tight ends that we were talking about, and then get a small wide receiver piece back. Because if I'm having to start Robert Tonyan week over week, that's just. I mean, what does this trade really actually do for me? I'm probably just putting in a lateral piece or another piece maybe in my wide receiving room, and that's fine. But I'm probably, I mean, man, if you're making the push, though, I mean, what's been the difference between Kyle Pitts and Robert Tonyan this year in points?
That's literally what I'm pulling up right now. And Tonyan in full PPR is actually ahead of him. He's tight end 16.
All right, never mind. Free. It's a free T. Higgins, right?
It's a free T. Higgins, right? No. But yeah, no, that's how you have to look at it. You got a valuable piece, similar value in Higgins for Pitts, and then you got tight end production.
Yep, I'm okay with it. In the right situation, I'll take the evil monkey side.
Yep, same here. So let's keep this thing rolling. We got a few more here to wrap up. This one for me, super fucking easy. If you're telling me you can trade off of Kyle Pitts right now, straight up and get Travis Kelce, I am doing it. Every time. I do not care what my team looks like. Travis Kelce is the tight end one in Dynasty.
Yeah. Do you want the guy that's on pace to probably, I mean, he's probably going to score 20 plus touchdowns this year? Or do you want the guy that's he scored like 3 touchdowns in his entire career through 2 years? I don't care what the age is. I'm taking Travis Kelce every single time. Just wanted to throw this one in here just because. Just to look at where the value would lie. I would need so much more on top of Kyle Pitts to move off of Travis Kelce right now.
And that's the thing, though, is like these trades are happening. So there are leagues out there where these trades do happen. So you have to explore it. Don't ever tell yourself, he's never going to take it. Send it out. If they say no, they say no. See what they would be willing. Really start the conversation from there. But obviously, these trades happen. So. Let's kick the ball down the road here and see what's next.
Let's see it. We're going to be moving into from the Kyle Pitts trades. If you got any more Kyle Pitts questions that you want to have asked, obviously DM us like we said previously. Wanted to move into the Matthew Stafford ones, though, because, man, it's like I said earlier today in our Discord, I'm trying to, by the beginning of next season, I should have a 0% share of Matthew Stafford. I don't want anything to do with him. And if I can get that share down to 0 before the season ends, I would do it in any situation. Do not care. But this seems wild if we just look at this, right? Matthew Stafford and Devin Singletary, a very usable running back for Geno Smith. Where do you sit on this one? Because I'm Geno. I don't care. I'll tell you right now, I am on Geno Smith.
I mean, we just don't know if Matt Stafford is going to play much this year. Like, there's really no incentive to get him back out there. So this could be a Geno Smith for Devin Singletary. And oh man, this feels weird to say, but I think I'm taking Geno Smith, man.
Yep. You tell me that Matthew Stafford's playing all of 23 too. I'm still taking Geno Smith.
I feel like if Matthew Stafford was healthy, even though he's played like dog water this year, if he was playing the rest of the year and you knew for sure he was playing next year, it would be a push. But I think so. I would lean the two pieces.
No, I don't see it, man.
I don't feel good about saying that at all, man.
This team's good. This team isn't going to get better next year, though, man. We've seen what Matthew Stafford's done this year, and it's almost borderline unusable. Like, he's borderline QB2, QB3 right now. And like, I think one of our leagues, he was scoring like 9 points per game because of the scoring format in there.
He's
like,
awful.
That's just unusable. And I don't see the team getting better. I mean, yeah, Cooper Kupp can come back, but he wasn't doing this without Cooper Kupp. The offensive line's still going to be bad. They don't have any capital. They don't have any picks. Matthew Stafford's always been hurt, and it just seems to be getting worse. And I'll take Geno Smith regardless.
You can talk me. I mean, like I said, right now I'm taking Geno Smith.
Yep.
You know, if there was some guarantee of Stafford's future, it would definitely make me more hesitant. But I think right now I don't have any hesitancy at all. Like, it feels gross, but like, I'm taking Geno.
Yep. By the way, I just saw this name. He hate me. Good name.
Love it.
All right, let's get our next one.
So this one popped in from your brain. This is something that you had talked out, and we're kind of looking at some ideas here. Run through the scenario for us, please.
So I wanted to try to find some Justin Fields trades. Seems like, even with the injury, nobody's trading him because I couldn't find any. So what I did was I walked myself through a scenario. Like, on a Justin Fields team, started off the season bad, came on very strong late. So I put myself in a scenario where I'm on a 6-5 team, 12 team, super flex, normal, everything else, 4-point passing touchdown. Don't need to get into too much depth there. I'm in 6th place right now with a 6-5 team, and I have Justin Fields. I'm concerned about the injury. I'm concerned about him moving forward, but I know what the production has been. But let's say I have a trade deadline that kicks in tomorrow, and I'm not going to know. As soon as games kick off tomorrow, that's my trade deadline. I'm not going to know what Justin Fields' injury or his outlook is before then. So if you're trying to make a push, get into the playoffs and see what happens, would you trade your Justin Fields for Kirk Cousins in the 104 of 2023?
So when you ran through this, I was immediately thinking, because it's, hypothetical. If it was the 102 or 103 where I knew I was getting another quarterback, it'd be a fucking lock. I'd be like,
that's why I put it at 104.
Smart man. And to be honest with you, I think I'm taking Kirk Cousins in the pick. I think I am. Like, I love Justin Fields and what he's done. I was really high on him coming out. He was a guy that I put up there borderline with Trevor Lawrence, but I couldn't mute out the fact that generational talent for T-Law. But like, I had Justin Fields neck and neck with him. So the fact that he's playing well makes me happy. But what does that do for my fantasy team? Man, I'm taking the chance. Like, Kirk Cousins is always a back end quarterback one. He's that QB 12, QB 13 guy that just consistently puts points on your roster. And then what I can do with that 104, like, essentially that's Gibbs, insert name here, but like, it's essentially Gibbs right now. I could trade that pick away and I could do so much for my team to benefit me, to make up for any difference between Cousins and Fields' points production, but also help my team depth wise, or maybe at another position of weakness. I don't feel even remotely bad about saying that either. I think I'm taking Cousins in the pick. It was close at first, but like, I feel like I can do a lot.
This hurts me to say. This hurts me to my core to say. I'm going to take Justin Fields here.
Okay.
I'm 6th place. What does Kirk Cousins in a 104 do for me to really make a playoff push? I can make a playoff push, but we're seeing what happens, right?
No.
Is Kirk Cousins and a 104 going to do anything for me to potentially win this year? Probably not. I'm making a pivot to see if I make it to the playoffs and see if I can make the push. And then we're just playing see what happens game. I personally would rather see what happens with Justin Fields, because if Justin Fields does come back and plays the rest of this year out, he's going to outproduce Kirk Cousins. I don't think there's really any question about that. And I'm going to take the risk that I can still make it into the playoffs this year. And then when Justin Fields does come back, the difference between Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins right now is not the 104, in my opinion, because the community buy-in to Justin Fields is he's above Kyler Murray. Like, I'm going to take the risk that Justin Fields isn't out, and I'm going to, well, me personally, I'm still not going to hold Justin Fields. Like, he's probably going to be gone off my roster before
Waiting
the
for
end of
that
the year.
value spike again, right?
But I'm going to wait until Justin Fields returns the value that I believe the community is putting in Justin Fields. So I'm actually going to be on the Sens side of this one.
So let me ask you this, because this is a trade that I have actually made, where I have traded Gibbs for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I've also traded the projected 104, 105, 106 straight up for Amon-Ra. So let's say it's Kirk Cousins and Amon-Ra St. Brown for Justin Fields. Does that change anything for you? Because that is where my brain goes to immediately, is what I can do with
I know
that
you
pick.
have made those deals, yeah, because we've walked through those deals together. So that it does definitely help for your playoff push, right? Like, you're probably not losing if Justin Fields misses a week or two here, which I know they're saying he's day to day. I can't see a world in which Trevor Siemian isn't starting at least this week and probably another two. So now you really are saying, okay, I'm just punting to next year, or do I want to make the push in? And is Amon-Ra enough for me to make the push? I think I'm just going to really take a deep look in the mirror, say, do I want to risk the potential value for my team to try to win this year?
True.
I think it's a team by team basis, because that does get me close. And I love Kirk Cousins and I hate Justin Fields. So like, there's also a little bit of balance there, right? So I think I'm going to be a little bit team specific on that one. I know it's probably not an answer that's,
You're fine.
black and white as good as we want, but I think in a lot of scenarios, if I had a Justin Fields share on my team, I'm going to hold it, because I know that it's so much more than Kirk Cousins and even Amon-Ra right now. I don't even think people are, if you send a Justin Fields owner today, Kirk Cousins and Amon-Ra in most scenarios, I still don't think it gets the done, because people are over the moon about Justin Fields right now.
And I do think, when you really sit back and look at it, because you're talking about it is team specific here, right? We went very specific with the 6-5 record, sixth place. Like, you're probably not a real contender.
Right.
So you probably just take the L's that you're going to get out of the playoffs, improve your actual draft stock for next year, and then see what Justin Fields is in the offseason and down the stretch. So that's kind of how I see where you're going with that. I have no problem holding Justin Fields for the record, but
hold him to trade.
Hold to trade. Exactly. Maximize that value. So any last things you want to touch on this one before we move to our final? I believe it's the final trade.
I think we do got one more in here that just came through at the very end. I believe we have it in. We might not have gotten this one in. We do have it in. Let's go.
Okay.
So this one just came through right as we were finishing up putting the slideshow together here. It doesn't have anything to do with any of the injury pivots or anything like that. I mean, I guess you could say Kmet takes a dip down with Justin Fields possibly being out and Trevor Siemian coming in, or he could take a bump. I don't know. Does Trevor Siemian throw the ball better than Justin Fields? Probably. He just doesn't run as good. So
maybe more opportunity. Yeah.
I
think the big thing for me here is a Najee pivot, right? Like, people are moving off of Najee right now, and this is kind of the value that you're getting. I mean, do you feel good sending away Najee Harris for Cole Kmet and Antonio Gibson? Forget situation.
Yeah, we're just looking at this one full vacuum. We don't know anything about it. Yuck. It would have to be a heavy tight end premium for me to do this.
There is a tight end premium. It's not heavy. I can tell you some context. I do know the Najee owner is contending and was moving off of him for points. I don't think he had any injury why he was trying to get Kmet, just a depth move. Yeah, man, like it feels awful, but we've talked about where Najee's value is, and even though he's played well the last couple weeks, despite all the Jalen Warren hoopla, whatever, like I mean, I still think I feel like I have to take Najee, man. Like I feel like I have to take Najee. I feel
Man,
like his value is going to go up in the offseason.
this is a team on a different trajectory for me than what I see with the Rams situation, right? Where like
Yeah.
we don't see a good Steelers offense right now, but Kenny Pickett hasn't looked god awful or
No,
anything. He's looked
not at
pretty
all.
serviceable with what he's been given, which is a really bad offensive line, and then some good weapons around him that are going to be there next year. Fryermuth, Claypool's obviously out, but Claypool wasn't anything ever really for this offense. And then you got rookie and then Deontay Johnson and Najee in the backfield. Jalen Warren even coming in probably helps the offense overall so that Najee doesn't have to carry that like 30 touch workload. But what
Don't
Najee
kill
is
him.
he's still going to be the lead back as far as I projecting going forward. And he's still going to be the receiving back, which is good for the fantasy production. And once this offense does get a little bit better, he's able to up his touchdown percentage versus his, up his touchdown percentage, up his yards per attempt, everything like that. I think that Najee is going to be much better than what I believe Antonio Gibson's going to be. So that's just the Cole Kmet piece, unless it's like a 1.75 plus or 2 tight end premium league. I'm gonna stay with Najee.
Yeah, it feels like the Komet owner sold on the touchdown hype and the fact of him getting like, what was it, 4 touchdowns in 3 games, something like that.
I believe so.
Yeah, I get it. I don't get it. I was gonna say I kind of get it if you wanted to spread out the points, but man, I think Najee's value and what Najee's going to put up on the field, you're losing out here. Maybe you gain a little bit in points this year, but I think long term, I like the Najee piece. So that wraps us up here. We would love for any other trade ideas, any trade questions, please drop it in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter, like, subscribe. Please, 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 please reach out to us with your trade questions. We would love to do more trade shows like this. Obviously, trade deadlines are going to be approaching, so we're going to be looking at off-season moves. So we will be talking about players that you can pivot into, or maybe targets for next year. So that's going to be some fun stuff to dive into as well. Anything else before we get out of here, my man?
No, man. Just any questions you've got, put them down there. We are going to get to every single question that's put in there. Every comment should have either like a response to it. And so if you've got anything, send it out. I think the only one we didn't get to was the one we highlighted on this show, and we told them we were going to put it on the show. So, I've got the time, especially. I think we both got the time to whatever y'all need. We're coming down the stretch here. This is when we're making our push into the playoffs. It's a wild and exciting time for a lot of us. We've got some trade deadlines. Even if you want to just throw in start sit stuff, I don't care. I'll answer some start sit questions. Anything fantasy related, except for which kicker to play or which kicker to pick up off of waivers. I won't answer that.
Nope. Or
anything else, though, I will answer
it. Exactly. So again, thank you so much for joining us here again. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Cody, you do the same as well. And thank you so much for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.